AEW has recently made a bunch of huge announcements that point to a global expansion for the company. This coming off the heels of their biggest international show of the year, AEW All in London. We're going to tell you what major shows are going to be held outside of the North American continent, why AEW seems to be running multiple stadium shows outside of the North American continent, where those are, all the details, capacity, blah, blah, blah. All that's coming up in this video. We're also going to be talking about a major update on the status of Ricky Starks, what's really going on between himself and AEW, what's the relationship looking like. We have an update courtesy of a view of Wrestle Purist. We're also going to talk about WWE Performance Center potentially moving to Las Vegas. Whole bunch to talk about in this video. Be sure to smash that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. All right, let's talk about AEW. Again, coming off the heels of their biggest show of the year. I was there, 55,000 packed up Wembley Stadium. This is the second year in a row they have run Wembley Stadium, and it has been so successful that AEW is looking to expand their international pay-per-view offerings even more. Here is what we have on the docket for next year. Two of these were announced recently, I might add. We have AEW Wrestle Dynasty, January 5th, 2025. That is a show that we knew about already. It's in partnership with CMLL, Stardom, and New Japan Pro Wrestling. That is going to be huge show the day after their Tokyo Dome show, Wrestle Kingdom for New Japan Pro Wrestling. Then we had these two announced just in the past few days. AEW Grand Slam Australia live February 15th, the day after Valentine's Day 2025 from Brisbane, Australia. We also have Forbidden Door August 24th in London, England. And it is crazy because we were recently talking about Australia as an option for AEW. There were reports that they were scouting options for doing a potential stadium show in Australia, and this is off the heels, obviously, of WWE having a very successful venture there earlier this year, in Perth, Australia for Elimination Chamber. And we got the announcement just a couple of days ago at literally right as All In was going on the air. AEW Grand Slam, they're moving that away from Arthur Ashe Stadium, it would seem, and moving that to a new venue, at least for next year, in Brisbane, Australia. And look, let's talk about that first. It makes a lot of sense just from a marketing standpoint. Obviously, when you associate Grand Slam with tennis, the Australian Open is a big thing that they do. It is a big tournament every year. The U.S. Open obviously held in Arthur Ashe. You have Australia hosting the Australian Open every year. It would make sense that they would want to look at that as a potential place. And obviously they have done some market research here that they feel like they can sell a lot of tickets for this show, something they have not done, unfortunately, for this Arthur Ashe show that is coming up in a few weeks in New York. And it is a horrible advance. There's no way to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. 3,600 tickets, I believe, as of the last WrestleTix update that we saw. That is not a good place for AEW to be in. Remember, Grand Slam was a show where in 2021, their first one, they sold over 20,000 tickets. Next show comes down a little bit to 12,000, 13,000. Then last year, they still sold 11,000 tickets, which is a good house, but 3,600 advance 1 month out is not good, and it's not where AEW wants to be at this point. And I think that's part of the decision to move Grand Slam there. And, I think you need to have new venues. You need to have new markets. You need to open yourself up internationally. And we'll talk about how this international expansion kind of plays into what AEW is trying to do. But I think Brisbane is a very interesting place. Obviously, Brisbane was a place that, originally was one of the contenders for Elimination Chamber before Perth was chosen. And if you kind of look at the map of Australia, you have Perth, which is the only real major city on the west coast of the country. And then you have all of the other ones, Brisbane, Sydney that are kind of along the East Coast. So they obviously got a show here. The stadium that they are running is a pretty decent sized stadium, to say the least. It is, I believe, a 55,000 seater, and their record capacity was 59,000 for an Ed Sheeran concert, which I would say is like a comparable setup to a wrestling show, more comparable than a rugby match, more comparable than an Aussie football match or whatever. So I think that's kind of what they're working with that. So it's going to be a big time major stadium show. And it's going to be interesting. They recently announced as well that AEW is going to be airing on ESPN. That's the big news coming out of Australia. They're going to be airing on ESPN. ESPN does not have the same, I think, weight as it does in the States over there, but obviously, like, this was announced alongside that partnership, alongside that deal being done. So it's kind of, they're trying to make some news out of this and make sure that people understand that this is a big deal for them. So we have Australia done. We have Japan, which we already kind of talked about. That's going to be a kind of a companion show to the New Japan Wrestle Kingdom show, and I think it's going to help both companies. Wrestle Kingdom, always held in the Tokyo Dome. It's going to be about 30,000, 40,000 people there usually. So it's going to be interesting to see how the AEW name does in Japan. I think given what we've seen and how fans have responded to AEW talent being in Japan, I think it's going to do a strong showing. So we'll see what happens there. Interesting note, as I said earlier, AEW returning to the scene of this past year's All In, just not for All In. They are coming back for Forbidden Door next year. AEW Forbidden Door, partnering with New Japan for that one. That is going to be held bank holiday weekend, same weekend as All In is usually held, but they've switched All In into July. They've made Forbidden Door the bank holiday show this year, and I think that's a very smart decision on their part. I think it's smart to keep the bank holiday weekend as the weekend that you, and bank holiday, for those of you who may not know, is like a long weekend. Like, they get that Monday off in London, or in England, excuse me. So for them, it's good to maximize their output here for that weekend, because it's like a big holiday weekend. People are looking for something to do. People are off the next day from work, so it kind of makes sense in that regard. And you're also giving them something new. All In, obviously the ticket sales kind of took a dive, but I mean, I'm not gonna say dive. That's I'm not gonna say that, because they went from selling 80,000 to selling 55,000, which is an insane number. People are going to speculate, they didn't sell X amount of tickets. 55,000 tickets is an insane amount of tickets to sell for any show. Anyone who tells you otherwise, anyone who tries to say that it's a failure, is talking out of their ass, doesn't know what they're talking about, doesn't understand the wrestling business. They're just trying to get clicks out of you. And that's fine, good, easy hustle, do what you got to do. But that is not a real take, as it were. The real take is that AEW does need to ensure that that weekend show is as fresh as it can possibly be. And I think bringing in stars from Japan that, let's be honest, a lot of these wrestling fans in London, a lot of these wrestling fans in Europe don't get to see very often. Like, seeing Tanahashi, seeing Shingo Takagi, seeing all of these guys that they don't get a chance to see is going to be a big draw. And I think it's going to be a bigger draw than people realize. As far as where it's going to be held, we don't know as of right now. I don't think it's going to be Wembley. That is just my guess. I would just say that I think the likely landing spot for this show, as far as where it could go, is probably Craven Cottage, which is where Fulham FC plays. That is a team that Tony Khan and his father own. They recently, like, AEW stars were actually at a Fulham game recently, and I think it's kind of known Tony wants to run run Craven Cottage. That was like a big thing from the start of AEW. He really wants to run Craven Cottage. I think this would be the time to run that. It's a smaller venue than Wembley. I believe it's like somewhere around like 30,000, 40,000 seats there. So we'll see what happens there, but they're looking to expand these stadium shows. And then, like, let's not forget, AEW All In 2025 in Texas, Arlington, Texas, at Globe Life Field. They are going all in on these stadium shows. And if you notice, like, one of the through lines here for all or most of their stadium shows outside of Grand Slam, or their international shows, outside of Grand Slam, is that there's a partnership aspect to it. For the Tokyo Dome show, they are partnering with New Japan. They're partnering with Stardom. They're partnering with CMLL. For the Forbidden Door show, they obviously are always partnering with New Japan, and that is a good thing. It means that they are using established companies who have trust, who have interest that AEW that can add to AEW and add to the event, and that can garner interest. And I think that's the path they've taken. They've kind of like seen what WWE did. WWE tried to have NXT UK, have NXT Europe, have NXT Japan. Like there were all these big plans, and they stopped because they kind of realized building out that infrastructure is expensive. It is long to. It's a long process to do, and it's just at the end of the day not as fruitful as building these partnerships with these already established, trusted, and credible wrestling companies in these local markets. And I think that's what AEW is going to do. It's how they started their relationship with New Japan Pro Wrestling, and that's how they're going to continue to do it as they expand globally here. Obviously, we covered a lot there. Let me know in the comment section, though, what you guys think about this. As we move on to our next topic, let's talk about WWE moving the Performance Center, ? This was an interesting report. So WWE could be looking to move the Performance Center. This is something that was kind of speculated that they could potentially have a bigger presence in Las Vegas. They recently ran an NXT pay-per-view outside of or right in Las Vegas at the UFC Apex, and that kind of started conversations, started rumors that maybe they'd be considering moving NXT to Vegas. Maybe NXT would get a residency in Vegas. Well, we have a few reports that kind of clear things up. Let's talk about it. So here's the original report from WrestleVotes. Quote, according to a source, there was an all-employee meeting today at WWE HQ in Stamford, hosted by Mark Shapiro. I'm told the biggest news to come out of the meeting is that the WWE Performance Center will be moving to Las Vegas in the near future. Again, that is the original report via WrestleVotes, who very well connected and well sourced when it comes to WWE news. Usually they post kind of, I'm not going to say spoilers, got pretty much spoilers for segments on Raw and things like that. But they seem to, they're right most of the time when they do that kind of stuff. So a credible voice to listen to. An equally, if not more credible voice to listen to about these matters is Sean Ross Sapp, who said the following about this report. Quote, sources at the top of WWE and TKO tell Fightful Select that they are not planning to move the WWE Performance Center to Las Vegas. We're told that Mark Shapiro was making a point that Vegas is a destination and that having a presence there is on the table. More details for the free tier members, that's Fightful Select. So conflicting reports there, and then we got the final update in this weird little saga from WrestleVotes to kind of clear matters up. Here is what they had to say about this. I've reached back out to the source after follow-up from Sean Ross Sapp. They are still confident in our initial report about Vegas. I'm told also this is not an overnight thing, and this could take some time. So in the end, time will tell. Okay. A lot of people have been dragging WrestleVotes. A lot of people have been saying, like, oh my God, WrestleVotes got this wrong. They're not a credible source, whatever. I want to be honest. As far as we know, like, I don't think it's clear. There's no plan to imminently move the Performance Center to Las Vegas. But I do think it's kind of like the latter of, like, there are rumblings. They're talking about it internally, and means probably going to happen at some point, or they're at least going to have a large presence there. I definitely think we'll see a residency in Vegas there pretty soon. I think that's just going to happen. The UFC, TKO have way too many connections in that area to make that not happen. And I think eventually you could see Raw having a residency in Vegas. You could see SmackDown having a residency in Vegas. I think that's just a part of this new future for WWE. As far as the Performance Center, from a PR perspective, I think WWE is, they're a company that don't have that many leaks. And when they do have leaks, especially leaks like this, they are very quick about pushing back against that narrative. And it's like a PR technique, even if this is true, which personally, I think that the fact that they push back and say like, "Oh, it's not happening," is kind of more of a defensive. Like, we did not want this to get out at this time, so we're going to deny, and then eventually, like, they're gonna make an announcement at some point, and NXT could be like having a residency in Vegas. NXT could be moving in Vegas, or the Performance Center could be moving to Vegas. I think at the end of the day, like, in a way, it kind of does make sense for for TKO to have all of their eggs in like the same area in one basket, where they can kind of optimize keeping an eye on them or whatever, and keep them all in one space. Because at the end of the day, they own UFC, which is a large presence in Las Vegas. A lot of their fighters live in Vegas, like that, the hub essentially of the UFC. For WWE, it's really that Orlando area. I think, again, we will wait and see. I am just, after seeing all of this, I'm more and more convinced that this may have just been a PR thing of like WWE being like, well, we don't really want this to get out, so here it is. Again, my PR brain kicking in, working PR, I'm always inclined to, I'm always inclined to believe that kind of stuff. Sorry about that. We'll see what happens there. Last, let's talk about Ricky Starks. We have a pretty big update on Ricky Starks. The question has been, what is up with Ricky Starks in AEW? He is healthy. He is seemingly ready to go. He's talked about this, yet he has not been seen on TV for quite some time. We did get a major update from Ibu of Wrestle Purist, who's well sourced on the matter, setting the following on a recent podcast appearance. Here's what he said. The thing that seems to be overlapping is that he's frustrated with the fact he hasn't been given a direction. AEW is of the belief he doesn't want to stay anymore, and seemingly he is waiting his deal out. That is what people think. Goes on to say, nobody can agree when the contract is expiring. The bottom line is Ricky Starks is home. He is healthy. He does not have any long-term plans in AEW. AEW has no long-term plans for him at this juncture, and that's the situation. We have talked about this for a while, and it seems like people's suspicions have been, not confirmed, but it seems like the rumblings are pretty much that these two sides are just not on the same page. And I think that's been clear from the outset, given the fact that within like a week or whatever of giving interviews about Ricky Stark's status, both Tony Khan and Ricky Starks had completely different answers. Tony Khan saying something to the effect of like, Ricky isn't clear to compete. Ricky a few days later saying, I'm good to go. Like, I just haven't been on TV. I'm just waiting. So that misconnection, that whatever it is, miscommunication, I think speaks volumes. And I think, look, I'm going to say, I think Ricky's headed to WWE. I think at the end of the day, whenever his contract is up, this mysterious contract that no one can seem to figure out, he will end up in NXT, or WWE in general. I think he has it's clear that AEW does not know how to use him at this point. I think it's unfortunate because he's someone who could have had a lot of potential for that company. It just did not work. It just has not worked out. I think the fact that AEW right now is kind of like saying, like, thinking like he doesn't want to stay, so no long-term plans for him is, even more kind of damning in that way. So does not look like we'll see Ricky anytime soon on AEW TV. I hope that changes. I think Ricky's great talent. I want to see him on TV as much as humanly possible, whether it's in WWE, whether it's in AEW, wherever it is. He's just that damn good. Unfortunate the way things have gone in AEW, though. That's all I got to say about this. I've already talked about this ad nauseum, but I know you guys have your opinions. You guys have your thoughts. You guys have your ways that you want this to go. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think about all of this. Ricky Starks, the WWE PC moving to Las Vegas. We're going to get WWE NXT shows in the Sphere. Let me know. And AEW's international expansion. We covered all of that. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think about any of it. I will answer questions, all that kind of stuff. Also, be sure to smash that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Until next time, be happy, be healthy, and as always, keep it real.